Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Bull Central. We're checking out the new remastered edition of the first two Soul Reaver games. Technically, there is a kind of a third-ish game. There's also Blood Omen and Blood Omen 2. But anyway, this is Soul Reaver 1 and 2, remastered for modern systems. It's on Xbox, PlayStation 5, PC, Switch even. It's for Nintendo, which is kind of dope. This footage is from the Xbox Series X edition. And the thing is that I played these games back when they originally came out. I was probably like 15, 16 years old. The first time I played Soul Reaver 1 was on Sega Dreamcast. Even just saying the words Sega Dreamcast fills my little teenage heart with joy, because I loved the Sega Dreamcast, the last Sega console, and really the port from PlayStation and PC to Dreamcast was perfect. It was a great game on Dreamcast. And Legacy of Kain 2 I played probably on PS2. But you know what? I loved these games, and even before I played them, I remember there was a special feature about the first one in Electronic Gaming Monthly, the magazine, and it was like this big spread about what this game was and what it could do and how dark and grim and cool and just friggin' badass it was going to be. And it indeed it was. I loved Soul Reaver, and so. Crystal Dynamics, the company originally responsible for producing them, has teamed up with Aspyre Entertainment to take those old assets, kind of build a new shell around them, update the graphics for 4K, but not to the point that it looks like a totally brand new game. It looks like the old game with a fresh coat of paint, 60 frames a second, which is really cool. And I take it that Crystal Dynamics is sort of playing the field with this to see if anybody would be interested in more Legacy of Kain games, and I'm down. I'm the first one down for a next-gen Soul Reaver. That would be incredible. But this game is really cool, and I'll tell you why it's cool. It's cool because even for $19.99, the lore is fantastic. Because what this is this guy here, this kind of decrepit guy with no jaw, this vampire character, his name is Raziel, and he's a vampire who evolves past his master. He grows these beautiful angelic wings. So in his hubris, his master Kain, the original vampire, sort of mutilates and then destroys him, kills him. But he's not dead. Some mysterious otherworldly being, force, tentacly thing resurrects him, and rather than feeding on blood as a vampire, he now is half dead, half alive, and he feeds on souls. And so what this is it's got this really great dynamic where you switch between the world of the living and the world of the dead, and it takes place hundreds of years after those events in which Raziel's killed by Kain. But the mechanic is fantastic. Even to this day, it's not bad. It bears similar resemblance to a certain Zelda, prominent Zelda entry. Well, a couple entries. But anyways, basically what you do is the world changes around you based on whether you're in the afterlife, well, the world of the dead, or if you're in the world of the living. And so puzzles, because this is an action game, both of them, although the action in Soul Reaver 2 is better. Like, they definitely updated it, and I'd forgotten that they'd updated it until I played this again this past week. But the puzzles, it's half puzzles, and so a lot of the puzzles, all of the puzzles pretty much, focus on you being able to switch back and forth between these two worlds, and eventually you get the ability to do that at will. And you know, the puzzles are really, they're not so hard that you could never figure it out. Even me as a teenager, I got them. But they're just challenging enough even to this day, and the combat is just fun enough even to this day. Because there's certain cool things about it. For instance, if you're going up against a vampire enemy, you cannot destroy the body with brutal means. Sorry, what am I trying to say? With physical means such as stabbing or something like that. You actually have to like rip through their chest and stab them through the heart or light them on fire. Or when you actually get the Soul Reaver in the early part of the game and kind of explodo pop them. And you know, and so there's variations to the combat because you can use light, sunlight, you can use fire, you can use the Soul Reaver. But the thing about the Soul Reaver is that in the world of the living, which is the prominent world, that's where all your enemies and all the main doing, because you can't actually interact with anything in the world of the dead, go figure. Your Soul Reaver is only as good as your full health bar, so if you are hit in any way, your Soul Reaver disappears, so you're forced to rely on weapons or your fists. Unless you die, and you don't die. You slip into the underworld where you get a chance to kind of devour souls down there, get the Soul Reaver back, transition back to the world of the living, you see. And the other cool thing about it, it's got all these cool powers, especially the second one the second one's great. It advances the story, it upgrades all the mechanics, and it looks a little bit better. Well, you can switch between the old 90s and early 2000s running versions and the new updated 4K skin that they just put on it. You can do that with the right stick, clicking the right stick, it will at any time. It's great. And then, you know, the last thing I want to talk about is the strength of the bosses. The bosses are, especially in the first one, they're all very unique. They're all of, well, mostly they're Raziel's brothers, his vampire brethren, who have just become mutated in the hundreds or thousands or whatever it is years since Raziel was alive. You know, it's not a perfect experience. For one thing, they have Aspyre. Now, Aspyre has recently done some Star Wars remasters as well, and I reviewed the Bounty Hunter, the Star Wars Bounty Hunter one they did. I love that game, and that game is way more playable now in its remastered form, but it has camera issues. A lot of games back then did have camera issues. That's kind of not as big a deal nowadays, but it was then. And especially Soul Reaver 1 has a lot of camera issues that are a bit tricky, and the combat's not as engrossing as a 2024 game. 2025, we're almost in 2025. This is Christmas Day that I'm releasing this. By the way, nothing better to do today. So anyway, that's all I gotta say. The Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remastered set, it's really good, especially for a walk in the old nostalgia forest, whatever that is. It's only $30 here in the United States. I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. If you played these back in the day, play them now, and you'll love it. If you never did, there's something worth here to discover. So there you go!